Hello! Thank you for joining me once again for this summer edition of what's in my camera bag and what do I use to actually make these videos. Now, without further ado, let's look at my bag as a whole and what bag am I actually using. I've been using the Think Tank Mindshift 26 litre now for quite a fair while. I love it because it's really water resistant. I've had it in the rain, God knows how many times, and I've always been A-okay. But on top of that, you can also fit some pretty big cameras in here. So when I had the R3 with a double grip, it had no issue at all fitting it all in. And now I'm using the Z8, I can get it in no problem at all. Lens is like a 600 PF, fantastic. I can get a 200 to 800 in here, I can get a 100 to 500 in here. And on top of that, I can also get in all of my film gear, which is so useful. Anyway, let's get on to the sexy subjects, eh? Let's talk about camera gear. Now, as we all know, I recently made the switch back from Canon to Nikon, my beloved home ground. And I've opted for this, the Nikon Z8, primarily because of the beautiful 45 megapixel sensor. And also, as a whole, my old setup, the R3 with a 2:8, compared to this, the Z8 with a 600 PF, is actually around something like 800 grams lighter, which can make all the difference when you're on a big long hike. On top of that, battery life is alright, not as good as the R3, but it's alright for what it is. And the autofocus is absolutely fantastic. I'm absolutely loving it. You may notice I've got it in a bit of a weird skin. I figured for once I'd actually try protecting one of my cameras. For years I've always just used and abused them. Just let them all get scratched up really. Back in my music days, are always covered in beer and whatnot which people would throw, so I figured this time round I'd actually attempt to keep one nice. Now, continuing on with the sexy subjects, let's talk about lenses. So when it comes to wildlife lenses, I'm only using one at the moment, and it is Nikon's 600mm F6.3 VR S. So a bit of a mouthful, but what I absolutely adore about this lens is the fact that one, it is so small. When I'm walking around hiking with this, it barely feels like I've got it on because it's just so small, it's so lightweight, but it is also razor sharp. Shoot this at 6.3, you're in for a pretty good time. And from what I've noticed, if you drop it down to f8, it's beautiful. It really sings, the sharpness is insane, it's incredible, which is kind of what you'd expect from a prime. Now, on top of that, it's weather sealed, meaning I can take it out in a bit of drizzle, a bit of rain, which is always nice here in the UK. And you may also notice, like my camera, I've also got it in a bit of a wrap. No real reason for it, I just figured, once again, it's about time I actually started protecting my gear. I doubt it's going to help me camouflage, blend into my surroundings that much when I've got all this bloody stuff jingling around, but I like it. It makes me happy at least. To hold all this gear up, I've been using black rapid straps for years. Now, I love these because I tend to find the normal straps, when you pull your camera up, depending on what side it is, whether the rubber's on your shoulder or the smooth side is on your shoulder, when you pull your camera up to your eye, occasionally you'll find that your jacket gets pulled with it, your binos get pulled to the side, and I find it annoying. I find myself I'm kind of shooting on a weird angle with my shoulder up to my head. Whereas with this, because it's essentially a D-ring on the strap, when you pull the camera up to your face, the strap stays exactly where it is, and it's just the ring itself which moves up and down, which means I'm not getting pulled from left to right when I use it. This is the Black Rapid Sport Edition, and it's the one I'd really recommend. I think you can get wider, so if you're using heavier gear, probably go for that. But I think for most general purpose scenarios, this is the one to go for. Lovely and padded. I can wear it for hours, won't really feel it, and I really like these things. I've used them for years for a reason, and I've never ever had one go wrong, which I think says a lot. Now, when you've got your fancy camera, you've got your R5, got your Z8, your Z9, or whatever it is you decide to use, whatever you enjoy using, what are your images being stored on? And that's of course your memory cards. So I use a collection of CF Express Type Bs, and I'll occasionally use SD cards. This is one of those things where it's do as I say, not as I do. I very rarely ever shoot with 2 cards in. You know, if I'm doing an event where it's mission critical work, of course I'll have a backup. But when I'm out doing wildlife, I tend to only shoot with 1 CF Express. And the CF Expresses I tend to opt for are these. So Delkin Blacks and Delkin Powers. Essentially anything by Delkin. You know, out of all the memory cards I've used and all the people I've ever spoke to, I've never ever met a single person who's ever had an issue with a Delkin card. Now, there might be someone out there who has, but I'm yet to come across them. And you know what? Even if you do have a problem with one of their cards, if you get one of their Delkin Blacks, the warranty is actually insane on these. You know, as long as it's registered and genuine UK stock, or stock from wherever you're from, they will actually replace your card within 2 days, 48 hours, which I think that's mind-blowing. It's a memory card. That level of support I think is absolutely fantastic, and is a testament to how good these cards actually are. So I wouldn't use anything but Delkin anymore. Let's get on to the bird spotting stuff, eh? So the binoculars I've used for years are these. These are a set of GPO Passion EDs. So they're not the most expensive set in the world, but you know what? Price to performance, I think these are absolutely incredible. As noted in my last gear video back in the spring, I compared these to the comparable Hawks and the Zeisses, and they really held their own, in terms of chromatic aberration, their weight, all of that sort of important stuff, the sharpness. They were great. So I'm so happy with these binos. I've had them in the pouring down rain, God knows how many times. And you know what? They've got a few battle scars to prove it. They've been knocked about a little bit, but they really, really handle well. They're really surviving really, really well. What I particularly enjoy about them is they've got a really nice positive focus wheel. A nice clicky eye cups as well. I love this set. I've tried a few different sets over the years, but these are the ones I really, really like. Though saying that, I do have my eyes set on a new set of binoculars. I don't know when I'll ever get them, they're quite pricey, but hey, if I ever do, you'll probably see them in a video sometime. I was going to say sometime soon, but it's going to be no time. It's not going to be soon at all, it's really not. Let's talk about audio. Now, my audio can fall into 2 different categories. Whereas with gear I use to record bird sounds, which is something I've recently added to my arsenal, and it's something which wasn't included in my last spring video. And then there's with gear I use to record myself and speaking to camera. So let's start with the bird songs. This is a Sennheiser MKE200. It's just a basic, lovely little microphone, and I'll use it quite sparingly, to be fair. So I hit a point with my videos where I noticed that I was using a lot of slow motion. So you'd see a bird singing, but you'd never ever hear it. Well, since changing back to my Nikon Z8, which can record audio while recording slow motion, it means I can actually get nice audio again, which means I can play bird calls while playing slow motion video, which is where this comes in. Now, truth be told, I do occasionally forget to use it, but every now and then you'll see it on my camera, and hopefully every now and then again, when listening to my videos, you'll hear some nice bird call, and it's thanks to that. As for when I record myself speaking to camera, well, I'm still using DJI's Mic 2 because it's just convenient. It's small, it's 32-bit float, meaning that I've got a bit of leeway if I get my audio wrong. But the new addition is this. So I've started laving myself up. So this is a Deity W Lav Pro, and it's in a Bubblebee The Lav Concealer. Now I often have this attached to myself on my chest because it tends to sound more natural, and it can be a bit annoying having a wire trailing down my t-shirt to the side of my trousers, but I prefer how it sounds compared to the regular DJI mics, which you're actually listening to me now using. So yeah, I really enjoy this thing. Apparently it's really weather resistant. All the advertising have this, well, it shows this in a glass of water. Well, I don't think I'd ever do that to it, but it's nice to know it can take a soaking if I'm ever caught in a rainstorm. shall we talk about video and how I record myself? So, as you may know, I am using a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. For the most part, I do really enjoy this. You know, having the stabilized footage is lovely. Having a really easy solution in terms of syncing audio. So this will sync straight to a DJI mic, meaning that I don't have to really align anything in post-production anymore, which is an absolute lifesaver. As for the Osmo Pocket 3 itself, I find that the image quality is all right. You know, back when I was using a whole different host of different cameras, I found that they kind of did a better job, but in terms of just sheer practicality, it is kind of hard to beat this. You know, I've got two different custom set up on here, one for 25 frames a second, one for 50, which is what I'll use for any sort of B-roll. And you know, obviously 25 I'll use for talking headshots. It's practical and the image quality is good enough. You know, I'm not saying it cuts perfectly with the footage from a Z8, but I've never expected it to, in all honesty. Now, I don't know if you can see it, I'll probably put in some B-roll of this. I'm using K&F ND filters, variable ND filters, and I've got the dual pack. I think it's 1 to 5 stops, and I think it's 5 to 9 stops, if I remember correctly. So this is just so I can get the correct amount of sort of motion blur by cutting out enough light, because you know, I want to shoot at a fairly low ISO, and if I'm in the middle, you know, of a field in the blazing sun, shooting at 25th of a second, well sorry, 25 frames a second or 1/50th of a second, wide open, I'm going to overexpose very, very quickly. So ND filters are a must. Aside from a regular sort of camera gear, I carry a few, you know, random little things with me. So I've always got a USB power bank on me, just in case you never know if your phone needs charging, or heaven forbid if you forget your spare batteries, you can charge your camera with one of these. I chose this particular one purely because it fit in my bag and it had a USB Type-C, which was very important for me. Aside from that, hey, hand gel. You know, Ilda, sanitising, alcohol sanitising gel. Because, you know, you should be hygienic when you're out and about. So, really, really important things. Aside from that, it really is just little odds and sods. My first odd and sod being a little multi-tool. So this is something you'll often get with three-legged thing tripods. And you know, you can just use it to undo brackets, tighten up legs on tripods, you know. It's a really, really little useful thing to have, you know, a little sort of like flathead sort of bit, and also a hex key, so really useful. And of course, as everyone should have in their camera bag, spare batteries. You know, I think we're lost without these. I've been out a few times with mates and they forgot their spare batteries, and it is always a bit awkward. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I think that just about covers it. You know, actually, tell a lie. Tripods. I use a Benro tortoise, and I actually use a Manfrotto 500. Yeah, a Manfrotto 500 head on top. Now, since changing to the Z8 with a 600mm PF, I don't find myself using the tripod anywhere near as much, primarily because it's so stable, I often don't need it. So, when out in the field, I will often sort of like rest against a tree, I'll tuck in nice and tight, and 9 times out of 10, it kind of does the job. Also, you know, we'll include the fact that I tend to shoot everything in 100 frames a second when it comes to the wildlife, so when I slow it down to 25 frames a second in post, it really takes out a lot of the bumps, so footage will seem a lot smoother. But you know, as far as the gear goes, that is essentially it. So I just wanted to do this video just to sort of show the differences between my sort of spring gear and my summer gear. Now, this isn't a video you can expect from me every season because that'll just be bonkers. But I figured since my audio gear has changed a fair bit and my camera gear itself has changed a fair bit, I figured why not? Let's throw out a little bonus video and give you a little bit of behind the scenes. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching once again. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you later, folks.